Hello, welcome to our stream, our weekly stream. I forget which number this is. For people who are watching out there in the real world, if you can let us know if the sound's okay, background music, and if you can hear Beth. Today we've got Beth Parr, a fine arts student at Wrexham Glasgow University, currently level 6.
Yes.
Okay, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
My name is Beth. I'm from a small town in the Midlands called Burton-on-Trent, but I am currently studying in Wrexham. I'm a fine arts student I do mainly paintings with a bit of collage.
That's fine. What we'll do is we'll jump over to the next screen in a second. We'll do a little deep dive into your Instagram account, stalk a few pictures. You tell us a little bit about each one, and then we'll ask you what you're going to paint for us today. People who are watching, if you do have any questions along the way, we've had quite a few people in there. We've got Rhubarb, Sapling Wolf, and Phantom Wolf all saying hello, and the sound's good. Okay, so let's move on to the next screen, and you don't have to see my face anymore. There we go. So Instagram, let's bring that up. So there's your Instagram. So if anyone does want to give Beth a follow, it's at @BethParr_art. All right, so let's start with the first one. I've noticed on your Instagram you don't put any text, so I can't sort of snoop and go, well, this means this. So,
That's normally because at the time I'm not 100% sure what I want to say. Normally I would go onto it later and edit it. But yeah, with this one, I didn't do that. I've not uploaded in a while, actually. Oops. But this piece is also here.
Okay.
And it's one of a series that I've started during this year based around nostalgia, memories, and like experiences I've had during the pandemic. And so it's like an abstract landscape. So you might be able to see on the image, the blue is like, it's like a family at a lake having a picnic. I used pictures of like families and stuff from the 80s and 60s because I want to, like, those normally make people think of nostalgia anyway. And so I thought I will include them to make it really obvious that I want you to be like, ooh, flashback kind of a thing. And I gave them face masks because that's all I've been seeing for a long time now because of the pandemic. So it's hard to sometimes imagine people's faces without them.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, that, isn't it? Is trying to remember what people look like. And even people that you started working with during the pandemic, and you meet them in real life and they still got a face mask on and you don't know who they are. Yeah, that's a really cool idea. Let's have a look. Okay.
That is actually the one that I'm working on now. It's upside down on here so I can reach these bits a bit better. But I did that, 1 second. I did create that one here, but this was the very first one that I ever made. And so now that I've like perfected the technique a lot better and everything, I just want to redo it to try and make it look a little bit more pristine for the degree show.
Okay. So
it's like pandemic memories kind of thing.
Because you use a lot of depth in your work. So the grid over the top of this one, was that helping you determine sort of the angles of the three-dimensional space, or
the grid itself with the filled in chunks, it was kind of to resemble, you know, when the pandemic was like really big, and there was like these big squares of like, you can't stand here, you can stand here, kind of thing, 2 meters. That's like a little nod to the 2 meter distance rule, if you will, like 2 blocks away from each other kind of thing. But it also with the color scheme works quite nicely.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So look at the next. Okay. I think this is one I shared earlier on to advertise your stream.
Yeah, this one, again, during the pandemic, there was a lot of things going on, like not just in the pandemic, like with people dying, but the Black Lives Matter movement really kicked up again with the death of George Floyd. And this was like, I was going to protests and I was just feeling very like, I needed to like get out the anger that I had with the situation. And so I made this as a way of channeling that.
That was kind of the reason I picked this one. When I said to you earlier on, I was just going to sort of jump onto your Instagram and pick a picture to share on our Insta. It's just really powerful. It just really sort of jumped out at me as that kind of political movement of change and the way it represents things.
I never did make that one like physical one. I only ever made that one digital, but I have considered going back and doing that one. I might do that over the summer, to be fair.
I think you absolutely should do that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
This one doesn't have a lot of meaning. It's here. I basically was scrolling through, like, I think it was Pinterest at the time, just trying to come up with ideas for things. And I saw that picture of a cat's face screaming, and I just was like, I really like that image, so I'm gonna have to make something of that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm not gonna forget about it. And so I made this one. This is probably one of my favorites.
I really like the way that you incorporate the color palette as well in the corner.
Yeah.
Into your work.
All of my pieces with the color palettes, I never pick them. I use an AI generator to pick the color palette for my next piece. And then whatever that makes me feel like, I could like, if I look at a set of colors and see like a certain scene in my head, then I will paint that kind of a thing.
Oh, that's really interesting. Because I know a lot of artists struggle with color theory and getting the color palettes right. And that, to start with that is quite interesting. So is there any particular software you use for that, or is it just?
It's an app. It's just called, instead of colors, it's coolers.
Oh, okay.
It just generates it for you. You can get it to pick like complementary palettes or just like random palettes, but I've always used it.
Sounds good. I mean, yeah, because there was quite a few that sort of popped up a few years ago, like Hue and Adobe Color and stuff. But Cooler used to be Adobe thing as well. It's spelled with a K-U-L-E-R, I think it was. Is that the same one? Different. Could be. We'll check it out.
Sure. We'll have to check.
Got a few comments coming in. Sapling Wolf has put, you really can tell what you were feeling when you made it. And Kiss My Artichokes put, that's a really cool way to work. There you go. All right, we'll have a couple more, and then we'll ask you what you're up to.
This is from my second year.
Mm-hmm.
I created a piece. I think it's a couple before that one. Oh no, that was the beginning of this year. Sorry. So I've made so much work, I've forgotten when they were made. This again was another color palette piece, but I forgot to include the color palette on the image. But yeah, this is just me experimenting with things that were around me at the time. Like I have this glass mannequin head at home that I used in my second year, and I was like, why not try and create a theme and include it in this year's as well. Interesting. So this is just an experiment. But the next one that I can see with the masks is another one that's nodding to the pandemic. Well,
someone in the chat just asked, Sapling was just asked, what's the text in the background?
Funnily enough, it's never meant to mean anything, but I just got a scrap piece of newspaper. Mm-hmm. But I always use the same one, and it's actually the moon landing newspaper.
All right, okay.
Yeah, it's, I don't know, the font and how it looks, it just works really well in the background as opposed to like more modern newspapers. Yeah, I was, this is me very much experimenting with, because I do a lot of my work on Procreate.
Okay.
And then from that, I decide which ones I like the most. And if I like them the most, then they get to be made like in physical.
That's an interesting way of working as well, in terms of concepting it up digitally before you
I
commit to paint.
As like a sketchbook.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't use the images. Well, I kind of do.
Yeah.
I upload them to Instagram, but it's nearly always with the physical image of it as well. But yeah, I use Procreate as like my sketchbook, but I wouldn't feel like confident just using the digital pieces as my final pieces. Like for me, I always have to like physically paint something, and I don't know how to explain why, but I just do. Like I can't. Yeah.
Because when we were setting up earlier on, I was quite interested in the sort of the canvas that you're using. It's not canvas, you're using hardboard.
Yeah.
Is that something that you sort of prefer to use over canvas, or is it just what works best?
I think it started out as it was like one of the cheapest materials for me to use, and you know, being a starving artist, I was like, I'll just use the cheapest. But then as time's gone on, I've displayed my work on these big metal grids with like bulldog clips.
Yeah.
And they just hold the hardboard well. So I figured I might as well keep going with that, because then that means the clips will fit.
We've got a comment in the chat from Rhubarb. So is the text being used as an image rather than information?
Yes, very much so.
I like that you looked down there to answer the question to the person who asked that question. So we should mention to everybody who's watching that Ali, who's also known as Rhubarb, is sitting in the corner next to the dragon out of the way, who's also going to join in and ask some questions. But when she said that she was going to join in and ask questions, I thought she was actually physically going to go. So there you go.
Hi.
So you've got multiple people today.
Yeah.
And some of you may or will know Ali from classes, or even from the group, the conversation we had a few weeks ago, which she was very proud of. Okay. So
I wasn't quite sure how to introduce myself though, so thank you very much, Steve.
You're welcome. We just got to rip that band-aid or that plaster off, haven't we?
Yes.
Kiss My Artichokes put hey with a waving emoji. So there you go.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you.
All right, so we'll come back to your Instagram a bit later on, and let's talk about what you're going to do for what you're doing for us today. So the piece that you're currently working on.
Yeah, so this is me redoing one of the very first pieces I ever made in this style of kind of very simple landscapes and areas with collage on top. I wanted to just, the first time around, I wasn't very good at keeping like neat lines, and I wasn't very good at attaching the imagery and stuff. So I just really want to prove to myself that now that I've done this loads on other pieces, I've got the technique like nailed. And so this is me just redoing it for the degree show.
Right, and you've mentioned degree show a couple of times. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the degree show this year?
I'm actually one of the coordinators for the degree show, and we're doing it via Instagram mainly, and it's gonna be us showing our work through that. It's at No Normal 21 if anyone wants to follow on Instagram.
No, I'm going to go and search for it now.
Thank you.
I'll post that. So it's no normal 21.
Yeah. And yeah, it's been very hectic preparing for it. We've been filling in holes and painting the walls white, ready to show all of our work off. And myself and my fellow coordinator Tom have been trying to come up with different teasers for the Instagram to like reel people in. We've messaged Ryan Reynolds and Rob as well to see if they want to have any part of it, because they're very big names in Wrexham at the minute.
Absolutely.
We haven't heard back from them yet, but we did message one of their managers and they said they'd pass it on. So
Oh, wow, okay.
fingers crossed, maybe.
I think the university is missing a trick there. We should definitely make them fellows. Get them into the graduation.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've got. I think this is one of the best usernames I've ever seen. It Fast Philo. I've seen normal 21. Looks great. Fast Philo sounds like some really fast pastry.
Yeah, tasty.
Mm.
Different from your chocolate twist.
Yeah,
Fast
absolutely.
Philo. Yeah. Also essential when you're preparing for your final show, especially when it's a digital online show.
Well, I've posted that in the chat, and I've also brought it up on the screen there, so it's actually on. It'll be on screen as well when we post this to YouTube in a couple of days. All right, so what would be a good idea is if I turn it down.
We must just point out that in the studio, the sun has decided to come out, which is wonderful, but it's actually really, really hot right now, isn't it, Beth? So Beth is in the middle of melting. The
I'm ginger, I can't take this.
The paint's probably drying extremely fast and thickening by the minute.
Mm-hmm.
We were in there setting up this morning, and I think we moved the camera a couple of times as well to make sure that we were in the right place, that we didn't get any sort of sunlight coming in. Mm-hmm. But it's a tricky one, isn't it, when there's other artists in the space. Fast Philo's come back to us. Haha, I wish it was that exciting. It's Alice Philo. I love chocolate twists too. We kind of knew it was Alice Philo, because I think for people watching, Philo actually stands for, is it Faculty Liaison Officer? Correct me if I'm wrong. There's an E in there, so I'm not sure what the E is for.
Engagement, maybe?
Yeah.
We'll have to learn our
Enterprise,
acronyms.
exciting, exaggerated. Engagement, there you go, yep. Engagement and liaison. There we go, so we know now.
So
Could have changed the timing.
Do I get the gold star then, Steve?
I think so, yeah.
Thank you.
You're the one who pays attention in the meetings. So let's back to you, Beth. How did you become a fine art student at Glendale?
Well, I've got like images of me as a baby, of me like painting. Like we used to have a spare room and my mum would like lay plastic down on all of the carpet and just roll out some blank wallpaper, and she would just let me go nuts, like in a nappy, that's it, just go nuts. And I didn't think that would have meant anything when I was younger, but now I see these images and I'm like, oh, it's always been there. Yeah, but in high school I actually wanted to be a marine biologist, but I am not good at science and maths, so they were like, you can't do that. And so I was like, oh, I guess I'll do art and philosophy and photography. And at the time I did enjoy it, but like I thought it was like a last resort. But now I'm like, nah, it was meant to be. It was meant to be.
Philosophy fits in really well with art, though. So it is kind of like you've gone down that path of playing to your strengths, clearly.
Mm-hmm.
So the decisions and the paths that we take will ultimately lead us to our destiny. There you go. That's deep. That's deep for a Wednesday.
It is, isn't it?
So in terms of your journey to get to where you are now into Glyndŵr University, you said you went to sixth form college. What happened then? Was it? Did you have a look for other universities, or did you?
Yeah.
You sort of ultimately decided to come to us.
I looked at a lot of universities, all of them in Wales. Didn't know why, just all of them were in Wales. Like, I looked at Cardiff Met and the one in Swansea that I can't remember the name of, and then this one. But out of all of them, I think it was the building that really sold it to me.
Okay.
Like, a lot of people look at the building and they're like, it looks very old, and paint's peeling and stuff. But I was like, it's got a lot of character.
Absolutely.
And I don't know. When I met the tutors as well, I knew that I was going to be more of like, they'd know my name, not just like a student number. Like, I'm in a class of how many? Like 9? 8?
Yeah, so it's actually supposed to be 11.
But like, it's such a small class.
Yeah. 9 of who are watching today.
It's nice knowing that, because the tutors aren't that like spread out amongst so many students. Like, if I needed them, they would be there quite quickly.
I think that's kind of one of the reasons why most of the lecturers work at the university, because we can get to know the students, we get to work with you guys, and ultimately we're not sort of chasing numbers, like you say. It's not for people old enough. It's not The Prisoner. We're not running down Portmeirion Beach shouting, "I'm not a number." So there's a bit of Welsh humour for you as well, and obviously picking all universities in Wales. It's a good country.
Yeah.
I don't want to go.
Yeah. Oh, she doesn't want to leave.
Eventually, I'll end up back in Wrexham, but I will have to go back to the Midlands for a few years, maybe.
There's a few people I've spoken to when I've worked up and down doing different things, and when I bring guest speakers in, they all comment on the fact that we can look out of a window and see grass and trees.
Yeah.
And you can't do that in cities or whatever else. Well, some cities.
I don't think I'm meant to cities.
Certainly certainly some inspiring landscapes knocking about in quite local to where we are. Sapling Wolves put, nice reference, Steve. You're very welcome. So I think we've answered the question of why did you choose fine art, and we got the sort of wallpaper reference. I mean, that's quite nice to see. It's always good getting kids into sort of art and messing about with paints and just, I don't know, this like that's how people get creative, isn't it? And we talked about this a few weeks ago when we were saying about children being really creative, and as they get older it sort of it lessens, whether that's because they stuck on a chair in school and sort of told to.
My little brother's the complete opposite of me. He's like proper bookworm, bless him. In psychology, I think. Yeah, he's nothing with me.
So, why the sort of what you're doing at the moment, what you're painting there? What's been the process up to this point? Then, how did you decide on where everything's going?
Well, like every piece I've made, I start on Procreate and I mess around with obviously the color palette, but also shapes and how that it could be like perceived as like a landscape or like a place. So like this would be like, I know it's very orange, but this would be the sand of the beach, and then this would be like the water, and I'll add like what looks to be like waves and then people in it, but so far I've just put on the base colors, and now I'm creating the depth by adding shadows to where the water is.
And what paint are you using?
What are these? They were free. We got a box of free paints from somewhere, and everyone's been using them. I think they're for like outdoor painting. I think they're all weather resistant.
Right,
But
okay. So nobody checked the label in case they're like completely toxic or anything. It's good to know.
They're not toxic, don't worry. Yeah, no, there's a company nearby who makes tester pots, and then they have to be disposed of at a certain time. So they offer them out to local colleges, schools, and universities. So we're always there. Yes, please.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think like
reduce, reuse, recycle.
30. I've got a good 20 of them, different colours.
So, because I asked that question because we have now and again we have people watching who are interested in getting started with painting and not sure what paints to buy, what brushes to buy, that sort of stuff. So that's why I tend to ask what you're using and how did you start doing that? What did you do to start with? So my next question is, what brushes are you using?
They're nothing like special. I won't lie. I just go to like the range and pick up a pack of brushes. Like you don't really need any like expensive brushes to get started. Paint wise, you want like maybe nicer quality. Like don't buy a £1 watercolor palette. Like splurge a little bit. But brush wise, my small ones are always from the range, but I haven't got one on hand, but all of my big ones are from B&Q, and it's like painted decorator brushes because they're cheap.
Okay, that's interesting because a few people that we've interviewed from Fine Art have gone down that route of not spending huge amounts of money on brushes. It's interesting because I think now we've had canvas, cardboard, and now hardboard as well.
Well, it's good to try out different things, isn't it? Different materials.
Definitely.
And I mean, the thing is, I suppose, even with the paint, I mean, Beth, you've been using other paints before this, haven't you? You've found paints from all different places, depending upon what you've needed. Beth had some absolutely brilliant colours.
For Christmas, my dad treated me to this set of neon paints. This is just 2 of them, but they are so bright. I mean, you can kind of see it on the camera, but when you see them in person, it's crazy. And especially under like a black light, it's just like the whole thing will brighten up. So I add little bits of those sometimes into my colors to give them more of a pop.
Yeah.
But those are like super expensive. If it wasn't a Christmas present, I wouldn't have brought it for myself.
It's interesting. I've seen a couple of artists recently adding sort of UV paints and things like that to their work. It brings it brings a different. Well, I suppose if it's in a gallery and you suddenly turn the light off or you put a UV light on, it completely changes the exhibition.
Yeah.
It's a nice idea.
But I've also got there's a painting here with the UVs. This one I prepared earlier. This has been painted with those neon paints, and I think you can see it quite well, how bright they are.
That's really good.
Yeah. But I've also got the Blackest black paint that you can buy.
Is this the one we were talking about earlier on that's actually copyrighted or something, or patented that you can't use it?
Well, this one's not patented that you can't use it, but the original was, and that's why this one was made.
So I wondered, where do they find the blackest black? Was it in a black hole?
I don't know.
I think it's made out of obsidian.
Like they've painted a black hole onto something. Like when you see it, it's kind of like, on Photoshop sometimes where somewhere doesn't like render and it's just like a black abyss. It's like that, but in real life. crazy.
It's kind of mad. Like when I've seen people using it and things, it is. Have you used it? Is that on the cat? Is it?
Yeah, it's on the cat, and then the neons are also on the cat, but I don't know if you can see how matte it is there. Quite blurry.
It does really make it out. I mean, the camera's not doing that justice at all. Sapling Wolves put neon colours are underrated. People are scared to use them because of how bright they are.
Definitely. Yeah. I kind of want to use them more. For sure. But I'll find some cheaper alternatives, I think. Because I can't afford £50 for cheap paint.
Surely when you become a famous artist selling these paintings for 60 grand a piece, it's kind of... Oh, you could look for some sponsorship.
Yeah.
That might work.
That might.
The Tester Pot company, you're doing them justice. If you keep mentioning their name, they might sponsor you for the neon paintings. So we talked about that black paint earlier on. And that leads me to my next question. What are your current influences or references?
Influence-wise, I won't lie, I've not looked at any other artists' work in terms of like looking for inspiration for a while, because I've just had my head down working on these. But I can't remember the name of it, but there is a collage aesthetic kind of thing going on at the minute where people use like very dated images from like the 50s, but they mix modern things in with it, and I quite like that. I like the mixing of like decades, if you will, like aesthetic wise of the decades. And there's also an aesthetic called vaporwave, which people probably will know because it's quite popular at the minute. And I like to think that some of my work, like this one definitely with the grid on the floor, has references to it, but I like to think that my color palettes and stuff like that are like resembling that. I don't necessarily have influences in terms of like styles of painting and stuff, but how I want it to look, I do.
So you've been generating, haven't you, sort of layered images now for a long time, and different ways of layering images to create these compositions. So it's evolved quite carefully.
Yeah.
With lots of research at different points to help inform and make those decisions, hasn't it, Beth?
Yeah.
You know, but it has been really interesting when Beth started to find this particular way of working. It was
sort of clicked, didn't it? And
yeah.
Then it was like zoom.
Yeah, and it's been fantastic. So
yeah.
So Beth more recently has been on this kind of journey about then developing her own language within using these types of images and the different, you know, sort of periods in time, because there's elements that obviously look really modern.
Yeah. So it's like a 50s picnic.
Yeah.
Over what would be seen as like maybe a modern contemporary background, and 70s kids on bikes over a modern contemporary background kind of thing.
Because leads my next question was going to be reoccurring themes within your work. And
so many.
Yeah, it's quite evident that.
Yeah, but layering has always been really important to you, hasn't it, Beth?
Yeah.
Because that top one you said about the 70s bikes, it reminds me a bit of Paperboy, the classic arcade game.
Yeah.
And especially with the grids as well, it's kind of like Tron-esque. It's nice. So.
I mean, I only recently kind of noticed that maybe video games have influenced me a little bit with the grids on the floor kind of thing, because it is very like old school, and I know that to some degree when you're making video games there's a lot of grids involved. I live with game dev students, so I've seen it a little bit. But
the odd grid on the floor.
yeah.
And that's just in the kitchen. That's how they make their dinner, game dev students, surely. Move 3 squares left, 3 squares right.
But there's so many reoccurring themes in my work when you really look at them, like from the squiggle kind of movement that is everywhere. I don't know where it came from, but I just really enjoy looking at it. And then I created like a sharper version of it with the points. It's all very linear. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose sort of quite way back, you were working on different surfaces, weren't you, like on acetates and things?
Yes.
And using some very painterly marks at different times, and then with using the digital to create some of these compositions, and that process that you've been using has then kind of almost altered bits of the language that you're using within the imagery. So that's been interesting to see. And how many times, I suppose, have we questioned why then take from the digital into the physical? This has been something that you're probably sick of hearing.
Like every assessment time, it would always be why not just keep it digital? And then one day, one of the other tutors turned around and was like, maybe it's because due to the pandemic, we've all been forced into a digital world, and this is my way of rebelling. Because it did kind of start happening more, the digital, when we went into the pandemic. So I think this is my way of saying, no, I don't want to conform to this like new life while we have it. I miss the old. This is my way of saying like, it'll go back to normal.
It's an interesting way of looking at it in terms of rebelling against that digital. I mean, it's nice. Like I always go on about sketchbooks, and I know there's a couple of academics and artists and that are sort of really championing sketchbooks at the moment. And even if it's a digital sketchbook, I mean that's perfect as well. It's using whatever you've got, but just to keep that creativity going every single day, just picking up a pencil, Apple Pencil, and drawing. Okay, so you've showed us brushes, you've showed us your paints. Is there any other medias or process or techniques that you're currently using over there? A bit of tape. There you go. So over the last couple of weeks, we've seen people use decorators brushes, we've seen baby wipes, we've seen plastic bags, seen all sorts. So it's always interesting to see what kind of other things you use in order to create your artwork.
So to make the grids on my work look straight, I use like, this is frog tape.
Okay.
Sponsor me.
Sponsored by frog tape.
So much frog tape.
If you'd have let me know, we'd have had a little ident like this popping up here. Instead of the Instagram little logo that you see popping up on your screen now, we would have had frog tape.
But yeah, I use tape to make sure the lines are straight. Which I think when it comes to having them next to marks like this, if it is like as straight as you can get it, it just makes it stand out even more.
Yeah.
The only issue is lining it up is quite hard sometimes.
So Phantom Wolf's put here we have our Lord and Saviour tape.
Yes.
I think Phantom Wolf is a cosplayer, so lots of tape involved.
Yeah. It's really handy. for keeping the straight lines because I can't do it.
It's a skill in itself, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you know, now you've put that tape on there, looking at the shadows that you've put on that, it's completely changed the way that I've been looking at that piece now, and the way it looks on the camera.
Yeah, when the grid goes over here, I'll also paint a shadow onto that to give it even more depth.
Right. It's looking really. Like I said, it's just. I don't know whether it's because of the tape that's gone on there or what, but the way I was looking at it before has completely changed now, and it actually looks like the blue's on top. Before it looked like the red was on top.
Yeah.
It's a really fascinating way of working. There we go. Phantom Wolf, always lots of tape. There we go.
Mhm. Cool.
So, and how well? You use tape and brushes. I mean, the next question that I've got on the list is how do you select the medium and processors of choice? So,
whichever's easiest. I guess I'm kind of lazy.
I think, though, really, maybe the real answer there is that it's been hours and hours and days and weeks, of trying out different materials, different approaches, to perfect and refine a certain series of actions that you use on materials, isn't it? That you have, in all seriousness, you really, you've spent a long time working out. And, I think the fact that you're recreating something that you made some time ago is proof of that, isn't it? That you want to keep refining even further what you do.
But there's only so far I can go with refining stuff like straight lines. One day I think I'm just going to turn around and start fresh, like maybe remake it again, but just not use any tape or anything. Just take away all of these boundaries I've given myself. Take them all away, see what comes of it.
It's interesting because a lot of students have that go-to thing of, I just do it because it's easy or whatever else, but what they don't realise is all the years that you've put into perfecting these, all the painstaking hours of putting things, and then it's your creativity coming out and being explored on a canvas, but you sell yourself short. Which is I think is a trait that most artists suffer from. Confidence and selling themselves short.
And I think what is great is that, like we were saying before, that Beth has been working with layers and different types of imagery for a long time, to then sort of select certain elements that have become this current language within the images. And as Beth just said, that at some point there'll be a move from this point in time as well, and there'll be a kickback. And
I never like to let myself get too comfortable because I can quite easily fall into an artist's block that's really hard to get out of if I get too comfortable with something. So I always like to change it up a little bit.
The great reveal.
Oh,
wow.
Yes. Wait for it.
Frog tape wins.
And it changes again. So you've even got performance with it.
This is
honestly, it's satisfying.
We started saying, haven't we, when we've coined the phrase "pester while you paint," and we've turned regular artists into performance artists by streaming you across the globe. So, how, in terms of scale, how important is scale in your work?
This has been a big question for a while. For me personally, it's not a big deal how big or how small my work is, but other people seem to think it is.
I think that's probably why the question was generated in the first place.
But initially I was going to make these paintings that I've got now like a lot bigger.
Yeah.
But I felt like it would, I don't know, I just didn't have the right like feeling for it. And then another tutor pointed out that if they're smaller, they feel a little bit more personal than like something big and extravagant.
Yeah.
But they're not all small like these three. These three are probably, no, there's one smaller than these three, but none of them are the same size really. And I think that's just because I can't make my mind up, but also I like how it looks when they're all different.
So, a question from the chat for you. How long does it usually take you to make one of these paintings from start to finish? And do you always have the same process that you go through?
It is
Sapling Wolf.
It is always the same process, yeah. And it depends what frame of mind I'm in. If I'm feeling really productive, I can probably try one of these, like one of the smaller ones I could do in a day, but one like this size might take a couple days.
Yeah.
But if I'm not in the mindset, it could take a week. I don't ever give myself a deadline, but maybe I should, but yeah, it takes anywhere from a couple days to a week, I would say. And that's mainly because of all of this, because, you know, I have to go one way, let it dry, and then another way, let it dry, and then a third way with this one, and then let that dry before I can do anything else.
So, I mean, I come from the digital side of the school. Are deadlines important to fine artists?
Big ones are. Like written work ones are, but I don't know, I've never found myself like rushing and freaking out about these, because normally if I explain to the tutors during an assessment why it's not finished and like what I'm thinking about doing with it, as long as I can give an excuse as to why it's not finished, it's fine.
I didn't generally mean all deadlines in university are absolutely crucially important. That's what
Yeah.
I just meant in when you go out into the world after this year. In terms of deadlines for like galleries and exhibitions and things like that, is that something that you're going to have to worry about, or is it slightly different for fine artists?
No, I think I'd still definitely have to worry about it. I can go through phases of just not being able to focus for like days.
Yeah.
And so that could end up being a little bit worrying. But yeah, I think I'll be okay, I think, in the outside world, but you know.
So what you're saying about going through these phases, how do you have any coping methods or anything like that to get you back on track, to get you out of those lacks of focus periods?
Sometimes if I'm really like, if I really I've like burnt out, I've done too much and I need to do more stuff, but I'm just so burnt out, I will I'll go camping somewhere with my partner for the weekend and just like turn off my phone and just ignore everything but like nature and obviously him, and we'll like go on walks and stuff, and then I come back and I've got like a clear head and I'm good to go again. Sometimes I just need to like turn off everything, like no social media, nothing.
Yeah, kind of like a reset.
Yeah. That's
an interesting take, because especially with the lockdown, the pandemic, and everything else. I mean, social media has kind of taken over everything.
Yeah, I've not enjoyed that too much. I like social media, but like I don't like the idea of living on it.
And in terms of bringing that focus back, what motivates you to do your work? And what motivates you to create these? It's always a tricky question, that. What motivates you?
Can I step in there?
Yeah.
So thinking about that question and thinking about Beth and the way that she works, and our constant questioning as to why then these digital images need to become physical paintings. Beth has always kind of answered that she needs to actually make. So there's that feeling of needing to
stimulate her, I guess, in
Yeah.
the brain, like making things physically.
Yeah.
I need that. Yeah.
Yeah. So using those physical materials and going through that act of making and creating something, I think is really important to you, isn't it?
Yeah, because it's so easy when you do things digitally to just hit the undo button and then the mistake's gone. And it's like, you know, but when it comes to this, if I make a mistake on this, I have to really think about how I'm going to fix it. And it's more of a challenge. I'd say making things physically is more of a challenge. And I think that's why I like it so much, because it's a good way of like keeping your brain in gear.
That's brilliant. I mean, someone's put in the, or Sophomores put in the chat, that was a hard question to answer. And I think you've done a great job of answering that question. And I've also noticed that we asked you about what mediums. Is that, what's that you're using there?
This or this?
Is it the, I'm going to say left, but it's kind of like, it could be your right hand. Dyslexia kicks in now and again. I have no idea. Just stick a hand in the air and I'll tell you yes or no.
I'm using a palette knife because it makes like it gives it a really smooth texture, which almost makes it look even more manufactured and less like a human's done it.
Okay.
Which again will contrast very well with, like, you can see the brush strokes in this.
Yeah.
But it's an interesting interplay, isn't it? You know, using sort of a really old-fashioned, well, maybe not old-fashioned, but a tool that many people have used for generations, an old-style painting tool, to create a digital or a manufactured style mark.
Yeah.
And there's this constant sort of movement for Beth between the kind of digital or manufactured and then the physical painterly gestural. So there's this constant sort of, I suppose, rubbing up against those contrasting elements, isn't there, within your work?
I would say so.
So it's like taking the best, isn't it? Of yeah, thank you. I was concentrating too hard then on Beth filling in. I'm fascinated because I'm not good at painting anything neat or perfect.
Same.
There you go, Ali. I think that you now need to be sponsored by Frog Tape.
Yes. Yeah.
This is it. So I think from now on, everyone needs to roll the Frog Tape. Some nice straight lines.
Yeah.
Is it always a case? Is it always a case of pulling one off at a time, or could you pull two at a time? Or?
I could, but if the paint's still wet, sometimes it might drag it across, and then I might get marks on it that I don't want. So I'm just very careful with it because I need to keep it like as pristine as I can. Obviously, a little bit of a mark isn't gonna hurt, but like it bled a bit there. That's fine. But to some degree, I think, yeah, one at a time, just so I know that I'm not going to ruin it by accident.
Yeah.
Or like, yeah, because if I do a big mistake, I might have a bit of a meltdown before I can fix it.
So, in this process of creating these artworks, has there been any surprises along the way?
What surprised you the most? Like during my process?
I think, I would think that the cat painting has been a real significant point, because actually the response to the cat one was, it was absolutely kind of phenomenal, really, for people, wasn't it? You know, and bearing in mind it's a cat as well, which you don't often see people these days using that type of imagery within fine art painting. So yeah, I think that it was almost like magic. Kind of magic, I suppose. Oh, I don't know. I don't do straight lines. Steve, is that straight?
you're asking me. I'm looking at it through a camera, so it's kind of
Yeah.
it might be slightly off. Like, it's freaking me out a little bit that you haven't got a ruler. So I like work in a digital space, and I press Control R or Command R, and I get a ruler.
I enjoy a little bit of chaos.
Yeah. Although for me at the moment, this is extremely controlled. I've not actually sat and watched Beth actually paint.
No.
So I'm actually feeling quite tense watching these lines being made in awe and tense. Yeah.
Yeah, imagine how I feel doing them.
So, I mean, Ali, we've been doing this for a couple of weeks now, but in terms of like lifting the lid off stuff and looking at how students do it, how's this experience been for you now? How is this sort of working out for you? Just sitting there watching. I know you said you're a bit nervous, but.
Yeah, I mean, on the one hand, it's absolutely fantastic being able to actually be in this moment in time with Beth and yourself and anybody else out there. And it is actually great being able to have some time to watch. But like I say, yeah, the kind of pressure to create the kind of marks that Beth is doing. So there's moments when it's so pleasurable, when she's got the palette knife moving down, but trying to create the straight lines, which is, you know, a great fear of mine, and trying to create precision, which is, again, another great fear of mine, because it's so opposite from what I actually do within my own practice. So, yeah, I feel a bit like an expectant parent.
So I think this is really setting you up for your own little live stream, this, isn't it, Ali? For us to set you up with a space and a camera and.
Not sure, Steve. Thank you. Yeah. But yeah. So
I need to mask up.
Yeah, and there's also, I think what I'm finding amazing actually is seeing the students doing these. I think it's a fantastic opportunity, but actually being able to concentrate and make at the same time, because I don't think I could do the two.
Well, like,
this is.
Yeah. The talking and the making.
I think because I'm in a studio with so many people always talking at me anyway, I'm just kind of used to it.
Yeah.
So you could say that's something else we've trained you to do. We've educated you to work in a busy studio.
Yeah. And I thought they were all concentrating very hard,
is it.
separately on their work.
And what they've actually been doing is talking. So when they miss the deadline, they've all been discussing how they're going to come up with an excuse.
No
idea what you're on about.
No, but I think, like Beth's just said, that community within the studio. And then that's part of the reason why you go to art school, isn't it?
It's so good. Our class in particular has got like an insane bond that we've had it since like first year, I would say. I mean, that would be my second year, but ever since we started like fine art, the degree of that, we've always, I don't know, as a class we've all clicked. There's never been any like big drama or anything, which is really nice.
Yeah.
It is very much like a family. So the fact that I'm the only one that's from elsewhere in the UK, it's like, oh, they're all gonna be hanging out and I'll be hundreds of miles away, but it's okay. I know I'll see them again, but I'm gonna miss the community that we've got here.
Yeah,
for sure. I don't think we've got anything like it at home.
Well, I think it's just generally in the art school there is no drama. I don't like, since I've been working here, I've never known any sort of. Maybe I just walk around oblivious in my digital space, but I've never known anything. I've never had any. Maybe I'm just oblivious, but didn't really.
No, but I think on the one hand, because we're a small art school, it does create a really good community. For most people, doesn't it?
I mean, I've had friends in so many different courses. Because I did foundation year though, most of them that I made in the beginning have now graduated. I had friends in every class at one point, which was nice when we needed to do stuff like .. and we were trying to get everyone involved in that.
Yeah.
Oh, what you mentioned ... What could that be?
Well, it's nothing at the minute.
Yeah, it's sort of ceased now, isn't it? But it was. How would you explain what it was? It was like an art movement, wasn't it? It was like a group, a society, a belonging.
Think of like art club within art school.
Yeah.
So it's like everyone's technically already involved because we're all doing some form of art, but at the same time, like we had like a specific night every few months that we would like put on a show for everyone else that might not have known what we were up to. We have had guests in, I think, in the past as well.
Yeah.
It was good fun, and I hope that it does return once everything's back to normal.
I'm sure it absolutely will. It's been very difficult, hasn't it, doing it online?
Beth just had the realization that she's covered in pain.
Like I thought it was just on my hands, but no, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
I was,
But yeah,
This is a sad day for me.
so yes, Dash is a student-led evening that's run, as Beth said, every few months usually. And so you take over the art school, wouldn't you, for a few hours of an evening every once in a while, and so a chance to show, I suppose, students in other disciplines to share what everybody's doing, whether it's to create an event that people can observe or be a part of, or whether it's to showcase maybe some work, and they created various themes and things at different times. Sometimes there'd be auction type things as well as part of the evenings.
Auction, that was so good.
Which could be really funny.
Yeah. we had an auction where we would auction off an art supply that maybe we didn't use.
Yeah.
And other people would bid with their own art supply that they don't use, and if you could like make a trade, then you swapped supplies. But there was always like a number of people wanting one thing, and so you had to kind of like make your case as to why they wanted what you had.
So what was the most obscure art material that got auctioned up?
I had a jar full of what is it called, like the packing peanuts that you can get.
Oh yeah.
I had a jar of them, and I was trying to get rid of them because I didn't need them anymore. What can you think? Can you remember?
Well, I was thinking most obscure material used to make art with. Do you remember first year, Beth?
Oh no. Is this what I think it?
Yeah,
apples? Yeah.
Was this when someone mentioned in the group chat a few weeks ago there was one time there was all these apples everywhere.
Yeah.
I remember walking down the corridor once and seeing string everywhere and thought someone was about to hang their washing out.
That was us as well. Oh my god.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Shan Rebecca 8 in the chat's put hey Beth, and CAA Silversmith has put like swap shop.
Yeah, I like swap shop.
Yes. Absolutely.
Sean Rebecca's actually in my class. She's been helping me all day painting the studio.
All right, okay. Not somebody that we've moved their table.
No. Oh no, what? Yeah, we did.
Okay.
It's okay.
So apologies that we've moved your table.
See, that's one of those moments.
You know, it's a lot more. There's more tension with people watching. Normally, I'm just doing it like it's nothing, but now I'm like, oh, pressure's on to get this the lines right.
I'm surprised. How. Sorry, Steve, go on.
No, go on. Sapling Wolf's put in the chat, whose fault was the banana taped to the staff door?
I don't think that was us. I think was that Matt?
I know exactly who it is, because the same person also taped it on a freshly painted wall.
Oh, wait, who was that?
She's looking at her. Kiss my artichokes, but I heard about that banana.
The banana's doing very well, thank you.
It's flat.
And when somebody's ready to pay, was it $150,000? I might remove it.
They could be waiting a long time.
Oh my god.
The one that actually got sold for 150 grand, was that still like intact? Or had that like rotted away as well? Or?
Oh, it would be rotten by now, I hope.
Yeah.
But...
Well, no, I think they would have got a nice fresh banana because they actually sold a few of those bananas. Yeah. But initially somebody ate the banana, didn't they, the first one?
Oh my god.
I think.
Yeah, it's an expensive...
Fancy shredding his own work.
Yeah.
Eat the banana.
Yeah, Sapling Wolves I thought they ate it and called it a performance art.
I think it was more of a mishap, but yeah, performance.
I think Ali, you should eat the one on the staff door and call that performance art.
I'll gift it to somebody special, Steve.
So nasty,
That's I reckon that's where COVID started.
No.
From that banana. That was ground zero.
So it is our fault, why not?
No.
Yeah. Fine art's responsible for the outbreak of the pandemic. So in terms back to my questions, has there been any challenges along the way? Apart from tripping over apples and string in a corridor?
Do you mean like over the course of uni?
Yeah, with actually, you're now in your third year, due to graduate soon. What's been the biggest challenge that you've had to face as a student?
As well, figuring out what I'm doing next is very much an issue that I'm trying to figure out, but I need to have a break before I can do anything, because this year has been a lot.
Is that your plan once you've finished, once you've handed all your work in, everything's done and dusted?
Have a couple months off. I think I'm gonna help my brother get ready for him to go to uni, because he's going in September for his first year. I'll think about what I'm doing on the way, but yeah, I need a break, because there's so many things that I could do, but I just don't know. Like, I'm a little bit apprehensive to put all of my eggs in one basket at the minute.
It's always good to have a different plan, like options, keep your options open, and time to process. I think that's something that throughout the pandemic, there's a lot of people have sort of realised that having time to reflect and process what they're doing and what they need to do or what they'd like to do is it's really important.
Have you ever had hardships while I've been here? Can you think of any times I've come crying?
Yeah, we would.
Well, I was thinking, actually, going through lockdown, and then, readjusting to sort of doing a final year in this current climate has been a real challenge.
That is true.
And
I think now I'm allowed in every day into the studio. I don't think it's a big of a deal anymore, but back in September, when we were still very much like coming out of lockdown and we didn't know we were going into another one, and I was only allowed in here, like, what was it, once a week?
Yeah, so we did it gradually to begin with, didn't we, just for safety and to make sure that we could provide a safe environment for everybody. But so it was a gradual build-up of access. And I think we reviewed it, didn't we? I think you had 2 days to begin with, then we reviewed it after 2 weeks and increased the days slowly.
It bled.
It bled, Steve.
I'll fix it.
How are you going to fix that?
I'll just paint over it and hope for the best.
Well, that's fair enough.
But I think that you all did really, really well. You know, worked together as a team. Yeah.
Because last year, like last academic year, a lot of the class would have been in here like from very early in the morning to quite late in the evening, like every day. And so to not be able to do that, it hit me because yeah, I was in here all the time. And then suddenly to be stuck at home, I was like, now what?
Was you able to do any artwork at home? Do you have a
Yeah,
space or no?
but I had to be careful. I basically, in the accommodation, when they realized I was an art student, they kind of were like, if you get paint on anything, your deposit's gone. And I'm like, obviously. But they made it quite clear that I've got to be careful.
That's quite harsh from accommodation.
I know.
You're an art student, don't make a mess. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I understand why, but it was hard when I couldn't go anywhere else and make my mess.
Yeah.
Now it's okay because I can come here every day.
Some students have had a completely different experience. Obviously, the digital students, all their classes have been online, so they haven't been able to come in because obviously they could do that work. You know, they don't need such a large space. They just needed a computer and an internet connection. So I think there's plans in place now for us to start coming back on campus slowly, which I think is good, and I think is kind of needed for every student. Really, is just to have that again, is that community, that ability to be a part of something.
Yeah, all of my flatmates, they only leave the flat to go to the shop because they don't need to be in campus. So when I'm off and I vanish for a few hours every day, they're always like, where is she?
The Sapling Wolves put in the chat, can't wait to come back. Yeah, absolutely. We I think we're the same. I think I've been on campus 4 times since the pandemic, and that 2 of those was to set these Twitch streams up. So it's been really strange.
It has, but I think as well though, to see what students have been able to achieve.
Oh, absolutely.
It's been phenomenal, hasn't it? You know, it really has.
Yeah.
You know,
I think every single student has stepped up and actually produced some phenomenal work throughout the pandemic.
Definitely.
Just it shows the resilience and the sort of skills that our students have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's sort of the community that they have, the friendship groups that they have as well, have been really important. It's done really well, but it will be great when we can all spend more time on site again.
And we'll have a nice new space to do it in as well. They start building work on the 1st of June.
Yeah.
So I think we're having, I can't remember now what we're having, it changes every week. I know we're having new radiators. Living on the edge. Living the dream. So it'd be nice and warm in the winter. Nice and cool in the summer.
Yeah.
I think there's some renovations going on to the coffee shop, so we'll have a bit of a fancier coffee shop. There's going to be a gallery. What was you say then? It's better than the drive-through.
No. I said it all happens when I'm leaving.
You're about to go, yeah. You could always do a master's.
One day maybe. It's not for me right now.
So there'll be because we were supposed to have an open day on the 26th of June, but that's obviously we can't do it in the art school because the building work's going on, and I think it'll be good to see when that's done what the building's going to look like. I think it's a grade 2 listed building, so a lot of the work is going to be with it in keeping of the listing. So it's not going to be, we're not going to lose the pillars or the appeal of the frontage of the building or anything like that. But so it's be interesting to see.
Because I only got to work one open day as an ambassador, and then COVID hit.
Yeah. So yeah, Beth was one of our ambassadors.
I think it was in Feb. Yeah, the last one was in Feb.
We did do one, didn't we?
Yeah. I was running around in my yellow hoodie, trying to help people.
Did you get to keep the yellow hoodie?
No. I really wanted it, but they had to take it back and wash it, and then give it out to the next people that would be using it.
Oh, okay. They have just released a load of new hoodies and stuff.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to buy one. I haven't got anything yet.
Yeah, they announced it. I think they've seen it come through today on the emails saying about the new hoodies and stuff. So we'll probably try and speak to them about adding some merch to our Twitch stream. You know, now that we're affiliates.
Have you just seen? There's been a great reveal on the last line, and it's interacting with the red and the blue.
I will go over it again in the dark shade to make it look like it's got a shadow on it, but I want to get all the lines done first.
It does. Every time you put another line on it, it changes the way you see it.
Like
that's you know, I think that's, to know how to explain it, but that's like the sort of the cool or the greatness of that piece that you're working on already. It's not even finished and it's already looking amazing.
Thank you.
So I'm going to jump down a few questions on this and bring it to commissions and things like that. Would you ever sell this piece of work?
If the price is right.
Good answer.
Yeah.
Good answer. So the bidding starts at £3,000.
Yeah. I mean, if I feel like they're, I'd never actively put it up for sale. I don't think I'd do that with any of my work. I'd like offer commissions of like what people want, but like the ones that I've made for like myself, I don't think I would actively try and push. But if someone did come to me one day and was like, "Can I buy it?" I'd be like, "How much are we talking?"
Is that a difficult thing for a fine artist then, or someone who paints, to sort of come up with a price?
I mean, we've been taught how to price things in Create Futures, like if we were to start our own business.
Yeah.
But there is a very common thing with like fine art where people don't seem to think the price, like they seem to think it's too expensive for what it is, and they don't kind of understand that you've priced it based on your hours, like other creatives would have. I've definitely had that issue in the past where someone's been like, "Can you paint this for me?" And then I'll give them like what is it, like a quote?
Yeah.
I've given them a quote and they're like, "That's too expensive," and I'm like, that's like 2 hours of work, maybe more. Like I can't charge any less.
I think you always get that with clients.
Yeah.
Some clients will always go, "Oh, that's too expensive," and then and I think tattoo artists always post about that on social media and stuff, about people saying, "Oh, that's too much, I'm going to go somewhere else," and it's fine. Then that's the price is what it is, and that's what you're worth. So if you're not willing to pay that, then I'm sure there's another artist out there who might take the job on, but you're going to miss out at this opportunity.
Yeah.
So, but in terms of like, if you were to sell that piece, is it difficult for someone who, like, I'm not a painter, so it's easy for me to ask these questions, and it might sound really silly, so I'll ask the silly questions for people who are out there watching. If someone came up to you now and said, "I'm going to give you £1,000 for that painting," would it be hard to let go of that painting?
I think with this one in particular, it might be a little bit harder.
It's like an emotional attachment.
Kind of, because it's yes, it's a recreation of the first one I ever made, but in my brain it's still like visually it's the first one of this series I ever made. So I think it will definitely, like, it's got somewhere in the heart that it lives. But I don't know. At the same time, if I get like that, my house one day will just be full of paintings that I've not sold because I have an attachment. So I've learned not to be too precious with things, because there's always like photos and stuff, and if I really want to, I could always just make it again and never sell it, you know.
That's what I was going to say. What about if you made another one? You could keep this one, but make another one and sell
and I can sell this one, but keep the very first one.
Do you think that's what some of the Renaissance artists did? Like, do you think there's two Mona Lisas knocking about?
That would be cool if there was. But
I seen something a few weeks ago that was like, all the paintings in galleries are fake. The real ones are in billionaires' basements.
I mean, to a degree, that's possible, I think.
Yeah.
Well, you're not allowed to get close enough to check it, are you? So all that time you spent like knocking about the Louvre, trying to look at the postage stamp that is the Mona Lisa through the crowds.
God, I've seen it. It's so
it's tiny.
small.
Yeah. I was expecting this huge hoofing thing, and I walked in. They couldn't even get anywhere near to fight the crowd.
Yeah, the crowd is massive, and it's such a small painting. It was cool to see it, you know, to say like, oh, I've seen it in person. I don't think I would actively be like, I want to go see it again, you know.
Although, you know, when things are safe, it would be really great just to go on a trip somewhere, wouldn't it, all together?
Yeah, I think that's one thing we've missed out on massively, isn't it? Is the trips abroad. Travel definitely broadens the mind.
Yeah.
Funkatron's put in the chat, your Instagram is, and then he's put fire emojis, or they've put fire emojis.
Thank you. I need to upload more on it.
You've been a little bit busy with preparing.
I've been so busy. Yeah. Sometimes I forget I have it, and then someone will like follow me randomly. I'm like, oh, I've got an Instagram. I need to do something with that.
Yeah. How am I going to sell all these paintings in my house if I haven't got an Instagram to show them? There's going to be one day this house is going to be full of paintings, and then whoever inherits that house is going to be like quids in, because there's going to be all these undiscovered paintings from this famous artist who never sold any work.
Oh, it's like Van Gogh.
Yeah. I died a pauper, but I had like priceless artworks in his house.
Just keep your ears on.
Okay.
Oh, savage.
So you were putting some really tiny pieces of frog tape on there, weren't you?
Yeah, there's like where the lines. I never really plan where they're gonna hit. I just know like the distance between the tape has always got to be the same. So where they land is always gonna be a bit like weird. But yeah, so there's this tiny little curve of the blue that's poking out, and I'm like, I'm gonna try and cover that.
So Sapling Wolves put in the chat, unpopular opinion, the Mona Lisa is really not good, especially not Leonardo's best painting. I would agree with that. I would absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, it isn't his best.
It sounds cliche, but I do think Leonardo's is probably one of my all-time favourites, and the other works that he's done. I mean, there was a bear sketch that's being sold at the moment, or is going to be sold, and they reckon it's going to go for about $12 million. So if anyone wants to buy it for me, it'll look really good on my wall.
I went to, I can't remember the name of the gallery. It's in Swansea though. When I went for an interview there, at the same time, there were pages of his sketchbook on exhibition. Yeah. And I just my brain couldn't understand how he could get that much detail in like an A5 piece of paper with like a pencil.
Was it the medical sketches?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're phenomenal medical.
Scary, I could never.
the whole thing of that as well. If he'd have been caught doing that, he probably would have been burned at a stake or something for heresy. Because he used to keep the cadavers under his bed and just pull them out to sketch.
Yeah, because you weren't allowed to do medical
No.
drawings at the time, but he would just like, he had a mate in the morgue, I think, that just sort of helped him.
Mate in the morgue.
Yeah.
That's another phrase we're going to coin. We've got pester while you paint and mate in the morgue. So, do you ever step out of your comfort zone when you're doing your artwork, or is this now? Because you mentioned something about that before, that you lose focus if you keep doing the same thing. So would you ever go, like I was in there earlier on, I seen somebody else doing some work there with mannequins. Would you ever sort of like completely shift and do something different?
I don't know if it would be like going from painting to, well, no, it could be going from painting to sculpture, but I don't think it would be like a massive difference. It might be like I change my style of painting, so I go from like very flat colors to like, you know, like expressionism kind of thing, like loads of colors and textures. I don't know where I could see myself going, because I haven't gotten to the point where I'm sick of this yet, but like I know it will be there one day. But I've never, when I was younger, I used to be like very much like I have to be like this, I have to paint like this. And then in first year, Ali kind of like, she threw us all out of our comfort zone. But I think we've all benefited from it. Like, you taught me not to be too precious with my work, and now I'm not, which is good, because I used to get into a right little state if something went wrong. It's like, oh, if it's not perfect, then let's scrap it completely. But no, I'm fine with it.
Which is the complete opposite to what I tell my students.
Yeah.
No, not at all. I think it's kind of it's a whole different thing. I mean, obviously animation games and things like that, and there's an expectation. And like I say, like not throwing work away is a big thing, because I don't know, I like if, especially with sketchbooks as well, what's going on about sketchbooks, when you see the first drawing and then when you get to the end of the sketchbook and you see that last drawing, you can see your process.
Yeah. In terms of throwing away work, I think I always keep it for like 3 years at least. Like if I really like it at the time, I'll keep it for like 3 years. But obviously, if I hate it immediately, I might be like, But normally then, after I've kept it for the 3 years, I'll look at it and I'll be like, the idea was good. The execution, not so good. Like, could explore it a little bit more. Or like, if I just hate the sight of it, I'll be like, nah, it's gone. But there's been times where I found links that I didn't know were there. Like I found a piece from the very beginning of first year, and it had acetate. And I was, and that was a massive thing during my second and some of my third year, is using acetate to like show the layers. And so it's crazy to see the links to old work, like where you least expect them. But I'm not precious.
Yeah, I find in terms of that journey, how far do you feel you've come? Do you feel that you've moved forward, or do you miss the glory days? Or
I don't think I've had this could be my glory days. I don't think I've had a glory days yet, so I'm guessing it's this. There's like, I don't know if there's elements I miss, but there are like, I have good memories, you know? Like I don't feel like I want to go back and do it, but I can appreciate that I did it, you know?
Yeah. We just had a new follow. It's just popped up in the chat, and for some reason our follow animation hasn't worked. So I'm a bit sad because it's quite epic. So Thank you for the follow, The Fry. Your name will stay on the top for a bit, so at least you're getting some screen time on there. But it there should have been some sort of flames going on, but I don't know why it hasn't done that.
Too much paint.
Too much paint, but that's fine. I can fix it.
Is that where is that thin bit with the blue?
Just here.
Yeah.
It looks okay on the camera because it's far away, but when you see it from here, it's like, ooh, that's not great.
So, in terms of we've talked about people you share a studio with and things like that. Do you ever collaborate with other people?
The Yellow Line. The Yellow Line project.
Yeah. I didn't really contribute to that a lot, but
we were there. Do you want to explain the Yellow Line?
So I'm kind of like, all I can think of right now is just painting lines.
Yeah.
Not the meaning behind it.
So earlier on in this academic year, I introduced a project, the Yellow Line Project, and we'd been looking at a film by Francis Elise where he was repainting the yellow lines in the road. I'm trying to think where it was. Was it in Mexico or
somewhere tropical?
Yeah, but there was a significance with where he was painting these yellow lines. I think there'd been political differences.
Yeah.
But it was really interesting watching this performance piece by this artist repainting these yellow lines in this just ordinary place on an ordinary road with people just sort of around watching. Yeah. And so we started talking and thinking about that idea of the yellow line and what it means to us and, locations and things. So Level 6 started looking out for these yellow lines, and I asked them then to possibly place a yellow line somewhere. Yeah. So they did. And then this conversation continued till when we decided that there was some yellow lines already in the building that were looking a bit faded. So maybe we would reinstate those yellow lines. So we had an afternoon where we sat painting and repainting yellow lines together. But we soon discovered that the yellow line didn't really have to be yellow.
We started questioning what yellow meant to each other.
Yeah.
And how you envisioned yellow. And then we ended up with lines that people might be like, it's blue, it's red.
That's always that's always something that's difficult to explain, because could you explain what yellow is to somebody who'd never seen a colour before?
I mean, the only way I could think of describing it is like as a feeling that you might have. Mm-hmm. Like when you're really happy, stereotypically that would be yellow. Or like when you're sad, stereotypically that would be blue. You know?
Mm-hmm.
I could only...
More of a psychological feeling type. Yeah.
But even then, if you keep questioning and thinking, you could even probably find a happy blue.
Yeah.
Or a sad yellow. So you start to then, I suppose, question...
This blue that I've used here, I would say that's a happy blue. Like, it makes me happy. I really like this colour. But to other people, probably not.
So we collaborated on the Yellow Line project, and we found some interesting work was made. Yeah. We worked in various places, interesting images.
Yeah. I don't think I contributed a lot to that one, I'm not gonna lie.
You could, if you want, before you finish, you could contribute in the car park. There's a few that are missing from out there. Sapling Wolf actually put, "What's the Yellow Line project?" So hopefully that conversation has just answered that for you.
It's only on Teams.
It's only on Teams. Maybe that's something we need to share on Instagram.
Yeah. Share it.
Anyone can join in. Just point out yellow lines when you see them.
And Funkatron's put, "I love how the blue part literally lifts off the canvas."
Yeah.
And then again, it's great shade against the red. Absolutely, it's fantastic. And it changes every. I keep saying it changes every time I look at it. which one's on top?
Yeah.
You can see. I can see it in the Tate.
Mm-hmm.
Something that I would see. You could quite happily just walk around the corner and be like, "That's Beth Parr."
Will you take it there?
I would. I will get my mask on and I'll run in. I'll run to the outlet dock with my hood up as well, and I'll just run in and throw it at him. Can you imagine? It's on the front of the paper. Glyndor University lecturer attacks Tate staff with painting.
I would appreciate it though.
Yeah. You never know. You might hit the right person. So I think we've talked about COVID and how that's impacted your practice.
Yeah.
Would you say that it's had a massive influence on what you've chosen to do for your final pieces at the university?
I would say yeah, it has. Because for a while I felt very lost because everything was just sort of not how I'm used to it, and sometimes like because of that I can get very overwhelmed and just shut down.
Yeah.
Should probably get that diagnosed, but yeah, so it took me ages to feel like I could be in the mindset to make stuff, and the only way that I found that I could get out of the struggle is to make work about what I'm feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's how all of these came into play. Like all of the figures are wearing masks because it's like I've only ever seen people with face masks for the past like year and a bit now.
Yeah.
So honestly, when they take the masks all away, I'm going to be very confused.
It's going to be weird not having to run back into the house to grab my mask because I've forgotten it.
Yeah. Like it's second nature to me now to put it on, like no matter like wherever I go. Like I got out of the car with my partner the other day and he's like, why have you put your mask on? We're just going into the house. And I'm like, ah. I don't know. So yeah, when they take the mask all away, I mean, a lot of people aren't wearing them now outside because we don't have to anymore.
Yeah.
But I still feel like I have to.
So you mentioned there about sort of it's almost like a sort of art therapy in mental health. Do you feel that art is beneficial to improving people's mental health?
Oh, definitely. If I didn't have this, I would have probably been a lot worse during the pandemic. Like I was bad. I won't lie. I think I've been the lowest I've ever been. But I think if I didn't have uni as well and making work, God knows how bad it would have been. It's very much like one of my classmates always she always makes a joke of I can't afford therapy, so I do art. And it's kind of like that.
Yeah. That's interesting, because we've talked about this near enough every stream where, during the pandemic, Grayson Perry's popped up and loads of different celebrities and stuff. But yet recently, the government thinks it's a good idea to cut the funding for arts again. So we're now sort of going to lose 50% for arts funding in colleges and universities.
Oh my God, I didn't know that. That's so bad.
So it's always worth mentioning so that people can sort of rebel against the government, not rebel against the government, but thanks for some Funkatron's just put sub the death out of your YouTube. Thank you very much. And you've also highlighted your message, so it means you found our little dragon token things.
I think I'm putting too much paint on, the lines keep bleeding.
Yeah, it's still you're still not using that ruler.
No. I think my ruler, I do have one, but I think it's like under the table on the floor.
It's funny though that you reference like the idea of a ruler within fine art.
Yeah.
It's a bit like how, at school you'll have a ruler, you'll have a rubber and a razor, won't you? But when you sort of start a degree or a foundation,
You start with them.
those would be two things I would be getting rid of straight away.
I started with like loads of like basic supplies. Now I'm just like, if it's free, if someone doesn't want it, I'll take it. If it's like, it's very much a recycle thing we've got going on here. If someone doesn't want something, someone else will take it quite happily. So I never feel like I've like possibly wasted money, because I know that the art supplies, if I don't use them fully, will get used fully by someone else, which is nice.
And that's a great way of reduce, recycle. That's what I'm a big believer in that. And it's great, again, another example of community spirit of sharing and sort of reusing stuff. So, Ali, when you come to put your materials list out at the beginning of the year for new students, is a putty rubber and a ruler and a scalpel not on that?
You can have the scalpel.
I do remember getting a list of like possible basics you might need, but looking back now, I'm like, I don't think I've used half of them.
No. Yeah, it's a funny one, because I think times have changed, haven't they? And I think what individuals might want to use has changed. So there may be certain things like a sketchbook.
Yeah.
I haven't used a sketchbook all year. Normally I would be scribbling away in it, but because everything's digital and I can't show you, I just haven't used it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's a real change, and you were explaining before actually how you're using the digital to make and create these compositions and colour palettes and things, aren't you?
Yeah.
So it has really, I think, COVID, pandemic has impacted in all sorts of different ways. And it'd be interesting actually to sort of find out perhaps in 6 to 12 months and for you to then reflect upon it and see then, what you think and how you feel towards it. Because it's kind of hard, I think, to reflect on something that is still very current.
Yeah, it's still happening. So
the reflections you have are perhaps different than if it is, some time later after the event. But the shopping list, I would say now for an art student would be
cutting mat and a scalpel for sure.
Yeah.
An open mind.
An open mind, yes.
Wow, so a cheap list.
Yeah. And maybe some, a roll or two of lining paper and some different tools to draw with, maybe some twigs, maybe
found objects.
Yeah.
Frog tape.
Frog tapes, definitely. Yeah. But I don't think there's much nowadays, a generic list.
No.
Not like there used to be.
Yeah.
What about for you, Stephen, your students?
My list's really expensive. It's it's a computer and a drawing tablet.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunately is an absolute shame because it's so expensive. If Wacom is listening and wants to sponsor us, please donate generously to all students across the world. That'd be nice. Not just ours. It is one of them things, isn't it? I mean, some people are completely priced out at doing digital stuff, but there's cheaper alternatives.
Yes.
But I try and promote earn while you learn and take on commissions, put some of that money aside in order to invest in yourself and buy the equipment that you need in order. So when you do go out into the big wide world, you've already set yourself up a mini studio. You've got your computer, you've got your dual monitors, you've got your drawing tablet, and you're ready to make serious money or get that job that you want and be able to work anywhere in the world because you've got an internet connection and you can send off the work that they require.
Yeah.
So I suppose there's some pros and cons for both, isn't there?
Yeah.
We've got a couple of things coming up in the chat. We've got about 13 minutes till we get to the 2 hour mark.
Oh
So we've done
gosh.
quite well. So it's gone quite quick.
Yeah.
You were thinking, I only want to do an hour. We'll see how it goes. That's why I didn't tell you when it was an hour.
Yeah.
So Funkatron's put, so I was late, so you may have covered this, but what is your inspiration to start in painting and why did you choose this particular medium? So we have covered that. You've gone over the process and how you come about using Procreate, and you use digital stuff and you start putting it all together. It's quite a big explanation, really. I mean, people that we've interviewed in the past, it's been quite quick. Oh, it's because I do this, and I'm interested in this. But I think your process is so fascinating and so in depth, and you sell yourself massively short by going, oh, it's because I'm lazy or whatever else. But it is such an in-depth process. So I think when I post this on YouTube tomorrow, I think you definitely should have a little watch back.
Yeah.
And Sapling Wolves put, they have answered that question already, and that's also a hard question to answer sometimes.
Yeah.
It is absolutely a difficult question, and I always throw that question in there: what motivates you, or what inspires you, and stuff. And I tend to ask the question of who's your favourite artist, which is also a tricky one. And the best one is who's your least favourite artist.
Yeah.
And that's where I pause for you to fill that answer in.
Thinking again.
You had a name popped straight in your head when I mentioned that question earlier on.
Yeah.
But it's whether or not you want to put it on the internet for people to know.
Yeah.
And it's to do with black paint.
Not just black paint. His attitude to other artists in general is a bit bad.
Yeah.
I won't name names, but I will. I'll say
people
one
can go
name.
out and research, can't they? If
Yeah. So this particular artist, when Vanta Black was created, which is like the blackest black paint you can get, it looks like a section of like the world is missing, like on video games sometimes if it doesn't load in, it's like that black. He bought the rights to it so that no other artist could use it, and he made a very big deal out of it, and no one was happy about it. And then, so because he did that, other artists then had to start spending their own money and time into research and creating their own version of it that they could sell to other artists, because they just didn't think it was fair. So yeah, this artist called Stuart Semple, he made Black 2.0, and now he's made Black 3.0, which is even somehow darker than 2.0.
How is that even possible?
Yeah.
So actually, we had that conversation with me this morning. It was like saying, you know, if you're opening yourself up to people trying to change that slightly, even if it's just like one shade lighter or darker or something else, is how do you can't sort of copyright or patent or own the rights to a whole colour spectrum, surely.
It's kind of like,
and the chat is going off because of this.
yeah. I don't know, I just sort of saw it as like, it was him using his money as a way to make people think he might be better than other artists. It's like, oh, because I'm this rich, I can buy the rights to this specific paint that's very new and everyone wants, and now no one can have it because it's mine. And then he didn't even do anything with it for about 2 years after he bought the rights to it, I don't think. And it was like, oof.
You get those kind of people, though, don't you?
In retaliation, the Pinkest Pink was made, and and when you buy the Pinkest Pink, this is it. When you buy it, you have to sign a thing, like you have to tick a box on the website that says you are not this artist and you don't know him, and you can't give it him.
Some people in the chat have been posting about this. It's like, we'll start with people like, we've got Ori 12,000. even the computer software can be expensive. You can use software like MS Paint to make extravagant pieces. Absolutely. There is a website out there that will give you alternatives to paid software, so the free alternatives. Function Fave Artist is super easy for me. Franz Mark. Ori 1200 Heck. Artist David Hockney has done digital paintings using his iPad. And Kiss My Artichokes put, ooh, this is that. Is that the black paint guy? So yeah. And Kiss My Artichokes put also put, he's banned the other guy from buying it. Ori 1200's put, and the sample black smells like cherries apparently.
It does.
And Funkatron's put, same guy made the pinkest pink and the glowiest glow. Love that story.
I don't have the glow one, but I do have the pink one.
The pinkest pink. I like it.
I also have a glitter that he made. It's made out of teeny tiny glass shards so that you can still see the thing underneath it, but it sparkles like diamonds under certain lights.
Wow.
Got that for Christmas as well.
So will these be paintings that are up for sale?
I've got some of his neon ones, like his neon paints are in these ones. I don't think I have anything. No, there's one over there that I can't grab right now. It's, you know, the one with the half of the black, and it's got the glass glitter on the eyes to make them sparkle a little bit. But I am a little nervous to use too much of them because they're very expensive. So I want to feel like I'm really confident in the pieces that I use them on.
So how does that work then if you wanted to sell your artwork? And with that paint on it, does it matter, or is it just a case of you're not allowed to sell it to this guy?
I think that would bump up the price a little bit because of the paints I use. Because you always have to add in cost of materials when you're, you know, weighing up everything. So yeah, if I used these expensive paints on it, I would definitely be like, give me more money.
And Sapling Moles put, lots of people will private something that everyone deserves to have aces to. Funkatron, the website is pretty cool to look at. It's literally the most of everything, lol. Sapling Wolf, I know it's a bit different, but does anyone here remember the SCP lawsuit?
Maybe. I wouldn't be able to describe it, but I think I remember what that's in.
So we're coming to, we've got about 5 minutes left. So if anyone else has got any questions to put in the chat, then we can try and clear those up before we finish. I have a list of 42 questions when I interview fine art students that are kindly provided by a certain fine art member of staff, and we have only managed to get to number 20.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry.
Not at all. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and I think that piece is going to look phenomenal when it's finished. The way it's already sort of lifting off the page, and it looks different every time I look at it. It's I'm going to be excited to see it on Instagram. We'll certainly be following you, checking it out. I will bring your Instagram back up before we finish. It's just there in the corner for everyone to see. You can see some of Beth's work there. So certainly head over to. There's the apples, the dreaded apples.
Oh God, yeah, back in the day.
This is why the building's being renovated. There's all this rotten fruit everywhere.
Oh my God. I haven't looked at some of those pictures in like years. That's my A-level.
Hey, this is a cracking piece that you've done here.
I know, thank you.
Looks familiar. And this one.
I did that as a present for one of my teachers when I was leaving A-levels. So it's on a teeny tiny piece of wood.
Interesting. It's good. Some good stuff.
It's changed a lot over the years. definitely.
Which you'd hope it would, being on a fine art degree and being able to discover yourself and discover your process and artwork. So, say it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you this evening. We're coming up to the 2-hour mark now. So, say if anyone's got any last-minute questions, then I think we've got something from Sapling Wolf. Some Russian guy copyrighted the SCP stories, even though the stories are a collaborative public writing art piece.
Yeah.
It's strange, isn't it, what people will try and buy, copyright, and prevent other people from seeing and using. Really strange. It's like that guy who bought the medication for HIV and then sort of ramped up the price.
Oh,
I'm sure he's in prison now. I'm not sure.
I hope so.
I've sort of lost track of that one, but yeah, it is interesting what people will try and buy and try and copyright and things like that. So yeah, absolutely. Head over to Beth's Instagram, give her a follow. The only thing that's left for us to do now really is thank you for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you for Ali for lurking in the background. And there you go. It looks really hot in that room.
Yeah, it is. The sun has been coming in the window and hitting myself.
So you've managed to get yourself a suntan while working.
Yeah.
Kismet Artichokes put in the chat, followed, and thank you for the stream. So, in in TikTok fashion, TikTok. It's not TikTok. This is Twitch. What a faux pas. In Twitch fashion, we're going to raid somebody else's stream. So I'm just quickly looking to see who's online that we can raid and head over to, and let's see what somebody else is doing. And I will check that there's no advert's going to pop up when we do head over to raid. So there's like an advert popping up right now, so we'll do that. What I will do is I will throw on the follow screen in a second. We'll hit the raid. We won't pick a word this week. We have got brand new emotes that I will throw in the chat, and because most of you have been watching most of the evening, you should be able to unlock those. So if you do manage to do it, there is a raid emote. If we just go in and we'll spam the raid emote there, you can see it just popped up, little dragon with a sign. Because why wouldn't we have dragons? So this person that we're going to raid is doing some digital drawing on a Cintiq tablet. Okay, so thank you again, once again, Beth. It's been an absolute pleasure this evening. The piece that you're doing is amazing. Can't wait to see the final show, which is coming up. So people do head over. Do you want to throw that? What is it again? No normal 21.
At No Normal 21 on Instagram.
Check that out as well. And thank you very much.
Thanks.